Di, thanks for joining us today.
Hi Jo, it's my pleasure.
Now, we know today everyone's living very busy lifestyles and there's many people suffering from adrenal fatigue. So what are the symptoms of adrenal fatigue?
Absolutely, there are heaps of symptoms of adrenal fatigue, but the most obvious common ones that I see time and time again are just not really waking up in the morning feeling refreshed and needing that caffeine to get going. So you'll see a person who really wants coffee, maybe need 2 coffees to get going in the morning, wake up but don't really get going until about 10 o'clock. So they might be up at 7 or 8 but don't really feel awake until about 10 in the morning after that caffeine hit. Then they also tend to need, these sorts of people, something to calm off at the end of the day. So typically the coffee in the morning, the glass of wine at night is a symptom. Also we tend to find that craving salt and salty foods. Loving things like chocolate, so fatty foods, those foods that we think are sort of like sometime foods tend to be for a reason. A lot of driving on that. Also finding that afternoon low, so have lunch, get back from having lunch or in the office and then start to feel really tired at your desk between 3 and 4 o'clock. From there, you usually find that you'll get home and find yourself racing around, getting dinner and so forth, and then can often after dinner feel quite good, not too bad after dinner. And then find a bit of a slump or a low on the couch, can sometimes be starting to fall asleep. And then if you don't go to bed on time, so if you find yourself just getting past that point of needing to go to bed, you can get that second wind. And I find that lots of people are saying to me, look, I've missed that sort of 10:30 slot, and then I do my best work between 11 and 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then it starts all over again the next day. So you've gone to bed late and then you wake up in the morning feeling exhausted all over again. Also, a lack of handling stress as well as you used to. So life still is busy as it always has been, but you just don't cope as well as you used to. A typical sign is also getting those sweaty palms, sweaty armpits. Find people really irritating. So they're the same people that have been in your life. So it may be a mother-in-law, or although my mother-in-law was fantastic, but maybe somebody in your life that has always been a little bit of a pain, that have never worried you before, and suddenly they're really irritating. You're not tolerant of people anymore, so you might be in a queue at a supermarket or somewhere like that. You find that now people really get on your nerves, you really just don't have patience. All those sorts of things are signs of your adrenals fatiguing as well. But the biggest thing is probably the fatigue, the exhaustion. Doesn't matter how much sleep you get, doesn't matter how much rest you get, you just find yourself dragging your heels around all the time. And for a lot of people there's a mild depression, and also there's that sign of just lacking that ability to really want to do as much as you used to. So not the same drive anymore. So you do what you have to do, but not necessarily with as much enthusiasm probably as you did once. So some of these things are really subtle, but they are the fatigue. It's not the adrenals totally exhausted at this stage. It's just that they're starting to show signs of that fatiguing. And for a lot of women, it's also a lack of sexual drive, and that's a big one for them. They start to find that they just don't have anything else to give, and that starts to affect their relationships as well. So not one particular list of things, but just about anything to do with not as I used to be is probably something that you can put towards that could be adrenal fatigue.
So what causes adrenal fatigue?
Adrenal fatigue is quite complex, but the biggest reason people get adrenal fatigue is years and years and years and years of stress. Years and years and years of busyness, whatever you want to call it. I think it's pretty much the same thing. And a lot of younger people these days are what I call adrenal junkies. They love to be in that fast-paced world. Everything's just instant for them. But we are very primitive in a very technological world. I think our bodies are not really designed to cope with what the 21st century is throwing at us. And so we're at this speed. When you think of what's happened in the last 50 to 100 years, we have just come from, I mean, my dad went to school with a horse and cart, and that's in my lifetime that my dad did that, to now, if you think what kids are doing, they're carrying iPhones around in their pocket and so forth. So we're just in this world of this busyness just happening all the time. Our phones are with us, our iPads are with us, so we're always constantly needed and being felt that we just can't take that time to sort of take time out to relax and so forth. Also, not only the children, but women are doing so many things. We're really designed, dare I say it, to be mothering and to be mothers at home, cooking, cleaning, all those things. Yet we put so many more pressures on ourselves. There's a lot more women who are professional women who also run a family, are involved in sporting clubs, all those sorts of things, so they're just doing so much. So those are the most obvious ways we get adrenal fatigue, but it can also be after a real crisis in somebody's life. So they've had a major accident, they've had a surgery or something to that effect, and it can also be affected from the environmental side of things. So lots of toxins in a person's body, for example, they've had mercury poisoning or something like that. So there are many different ways we can actually get that adrenal fatigue, but obviously the very busy one is the most obvious. What I like people to understand is the 4 stages of the adrenal fatigue or of the stress gland. So stage 1 is basically fight flight, and that's what we all have in order to have surviving the planet. So years ago what we used to do was have those stress hormones in order to run from wildebeest, but what the wildebeest is now is our life. So it is the needing to be here, needing to be there, the deadline we have to make, those sorts of things. So that's very normal to be in that fight flight sort of stage 1 response. That's how we survive. Stage 2 is what we call a hyperreactive stage, and that's when you've had one thing after another thing after another thing. So you're not only busy, you've been busy for a number of years, but it's that feeling of really driving around. I always explain like being in second gear in your car. So you're kind of going all day, and your adrenals are sort of up there creating. They're just pumping all the time to give you strength and to allow you to keep running from that wildebeest. And that's fine again for a short term. It may be 6 months that you're really busy on a project or something, but you imagine doing that for 1, 2, 5, 10 years, the body just can't cope. So the third phase is what we call the hypoadrenal stage, and that hypo stage is when your body has decided it's just been up there in second gear, burning around for far too long. So the hypo stage is when your body just decides I've had enough, and it starts to get really fatigued. So it's actually crashing a little bit, and that's a little bit more like being in 4th gear. So when you get up to the traffic lights, you sort of got nothing to start, nothing to stop, you're just kind of chugging along, and that's where a lot of people sit. I see a lot of my patients who come to me are basically starting the day off hypo, so they're really exhausted, so they really have no energy, but because they have to do things, they get themselves up and going, get their adrenals going, and by the end of the day they're back up in second gear again. So they're always exhausted in the morning and over pumping. And your adrenal gland is a gland that sits on top of your kidney. It's like a little petrol tank, and what we should have is a good tank full of gas that once we've actually had a busy day or a busy week, the tank gets a little bit weaker, and on the weekend you should relax, replenish, do all those things you love to do, and that should bring your tank back up. But if you've been burning and driving your adrenals, an adrenal junkie, for a number of years, what's now happening is you're probably working on half a tank. So most of the week, this is where you're getting all your stress hormone from. By the end of the week, you've exhausted them out. So that's why when you're working, you're kind of fine, but when you stop, you crash. So that's sort of the big difference. The 4th stage of the adrenal fatigue is really where someone's fallen over. So that's generally when medical intervention comes in, where someone does go to their doctor. So what we want to identify is well before that stage, and there are so many things that you can do. Again, come on in, go and talk to your health professional. Pop on in, and there are so many things at that stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3 that you can start to do before you actually get into that really exhausted state.
So what should someone do if they think they may be suffering from adrenal fatigue?
Again, as I spoke within the menopause video, if you've had a chance to have a look at that one, is lifestyle is the biggest thing. And obviously lifestyle medicine is where we want to start, and that's just taking that time to slow down, to smell the roses. It's okay to be a very busy person, it's okay to be professional in your job or whatever you're doing and be involved in 100 things. But be involved when you're involved, and when you're not, take that time to stop, to slow down. This is where yoga is fantastic again, exercise is fantastic, and learning to say no, I think, is a big thing. I think we've come through a generation of just thinking we have to be everything to everybody all the time, and sometimes you're not doing anybody any service by actually saying yes when your body just really can't cope with it. Also, there are some supplements that are a must when it comes to adrenal fatigue. And one of the first ones that always springs to mind that I'll always put somebody on to start with is magnesium. Magnesium is the most important mineral that our body requires, and when you're under stress you are just dropping it and using it in bucketfuls. You do get it from green leafy vegetables, but the amount of veggies we need for the amount of stress we've got going on in our life, it just doesn't sort of really equate. So signs of that, you'll typically start to get sort of twitchy eyes, you get cramps, you don't sleep as well, you get a bit more anxious, all those sorts of things, and you find that sort of like even jumpy leg type thing will start to happen as signs of that. Also, vitamin C is hugely important for the adrenal gland, so magnesium, vitamin C. Also, just a basic, good, old-fashioned B complex. The B vitamins are very, very important under stress as well. So those simple things, before you even take a adrenal support formulation, are the most important things to start with. Then some herbs. There's some fantastic herbs that actually nourish the adrenals. So where I was telling you before, your adrenal tank could be really quite low, we want to put a little bit of petrol in there, and some of that petrol comes from some of these wonderful herbs that are adaptogen herbs, and what that means is when we're overworking, they will calm your adrenal gland down, and when we're exhausted, they'll pick your adrenal gland up. And we've got some fantastic formulas available to us these days, and I couldn't, there's too many to tell you them all today, and one again doesn't fit all. So I'd talk to a health professional about which one is going to be best for you, but never go for those adrenal support formulas without doing the base first. So you want your diet, your relaxation, your exercise, those sorts of things. And yes, exercise is great for an adrenal fatigue, but you need to listen to your body and not do too much. Get the base nutrients in there, the good nutrition, your B complexes, then put your adrenal support on top of that.
So what specific tweaks should someone make to their diet and lifestyle?
One of the first things we need to do is get off coffee. Get off anything with caffeine. So when it comes to women, it's coffee, and men, I suppose. But when it comes to younger people, it's the drinks that are actually the caffeine enhancing drinks as well. They turn the adrenal gland on, just like you're stressed if you're not stressed. So the reality is they're like a tap, and you're just going to drain your adrenals out. So you feel fantastic for 1 or 2 hours, then you get exhausted and you need another coffee. Also, liver loaders, anything that's going to stress your liver out. So alcohol's at the top of that list. A little bit's okay, but obviously not a lot. Chemicals in our life, so again, whether that's things we're putting on our skin or whether it's things we're eating, we want as close to nature. I just can't stress that enough when it comes to our diet. If there is lots the body has to process, it can't go and do the repair work, and that adrenal gland takes a lot of time to actually have that repair work happening. Also, just taking that ability to take that time to slow down when we're eating, mindful eating. When we eat, we tend to race our food down. If you're stressed when you're actually eating, you're eating stress hormones at the same time. So you're saying to your body, okay, adrenal glands, you might as well switch on while I'm eating as well. So the thing is being in the moment where you are. So when you're working, when you're exercising, when you're eating, and just take that time for ourselves. And going back to sitting at the table, simple little things like that, having family dinners or with your partner, just sitting at a table with a candle, or any of those sorts of things. We just tend to be racing from one thing to the next, always thinking we're late for wherever we're going, and just not taking that time to just be. And I know it's an old sort of a saying, but it's so true, and that's just taking time to smell the roses and enjoy being now. The past is kind of in the past, the future we can't sort of deal with it there, but just being right here and now and enjoying life for what it is right at this moment. So one of the best things you can do for yourself is just basically taking that time and putting yourself first, relaxing, enjoying life, and remembering that really just putting yourself first is probably the most important thing for your adrenals, and just learning to listen to your body and doing what it feels like. If it needs to rest it. If it wants to go for some exercise, go and do the exercise. And I think that's something that would be the best thing actually to getting those adrenals to start repairing.
Well, Di, thank you for that. That's some great information that I think a lot of people, women in particular, can relate to.
Absolutely.